Welcome back to this video series on building Reversi as a web app. I'm Professor J Patterson. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a chat room that our web client can connect to that's running on our server so that we can set up communication between multiple clients in kind of an instant messaging style communication. We're going to have to do this in a bunch of steps, so let's take a look at some of them. We want to set up our chat room, and so there's a little bit of housekeeping that we need to do just to fix up a few things from our last tutorial videos. And we're going to do this in 3 steps after that. First, we're going to set up the client side. So in the browser, what we're going to do is we're going to add some code so that after our website has loaded and after it has made that connection to the server, it's then going to explicitly ask the server to join a chat room. That's going to be an extra message that we're sending. Then on the server side, what we're going to do is we're going to wait to receive messages from clients when they want to join a chat room. And if we do get that message, we're going to check to make sure that the data that they sent us was good. Then we'll put them into the chat room that they requested. And then we're going to tell everyone that's in that chat room that a new person has joined. Then to finish that loop, back on the client side, we'll handle that response that comes back from the server telling us that a new person has joined the chat room, and we'll update our view for the user indicating that someone new is in the chat room. And then we'll put all those things together. So just visually, here's what we've got. We've got our website client down at the bottom in a page called lobby.html, loading up main.js and loading up socket.io. When we initialize socket.io, we're going to make a socket connection to server.js, and server.js is going to automatically recognize connections, and if our web page disconnects, also disconnects. Those aren't messages that need to be explicitly sent. Those are ones that are set up by the socket layer. What we're going to do is, in addition to this, after we've made that connection, we're going to explicitly send a message from our code to the server asking to join a chat room. And if everything goes well, or if it doesn't go well, the server will respond with the result of that joining. Our client will receive that result and render it. All right, so let's tackle that one at a time. So let's go back and start with housekeeping. Let's go to Visual Studio Code. And the first housekeeping thing that I want to do is I want to enable people that use our website to be able to use usernames that have spaces and special characters in them. So if you'll recall, the place where the user enters in their username is in index.html. So let's go there. In index.html, you can see that we have this function that grabs the name that the user has entered into the form and then kicks the user over to a new web page, the lobby.html. What we're going to do here is we're just going to put the result of this in another function. We're going to wrap this with encode URI. And that's a function that comes built into your browser that will make it so that users can have spaces and special characters in their name if they want. Great. So that will encode it and we'll send it to the lobby. We can save that. And then when we receive it, who's receiving it? Well, it's going to be received by, let's see, lobby's going to open it up. We're going to go to lobby. Lobby's going to open it up. So when lobby gets it, lobby is going to run main.js, and main.js is going to come up here. And when it tries to get the username, it's going to pull the username off the URI. And what we want to do is we want to decode it before we use it. And so that will make it safe to put in the URL and then make it usable once we get it back. The other bit of housekeeping that I want to do is I just want to remove this. Well, let's see that work before we remove this. So let's save that file. And let's go to a terminal window. And if all goes well, let's see where I am. Good, I'm in the right spot. I am going to run my server on my local host. It's running okay. And now I'm going to, let's see, load up a browser with the web page. And I'm going to enter in a display name with a space in it. So I'll do my full name. I'm going to enter the lobby. And you can see that we grabbed the full name and there's no problems with it. And you'll notice that what happens up here in the IRI is that we escape it or we encode it. That space becomes %20, and then we remove the space when we decode it. So that's good. That's all I wanted to clean up for the first bit. The other thing I want to do now for cleaning up is I want to remove where we put that name in here. Having verified that it works, I want to now remove it. because we don't need that. So that's here. We're in main.js. This is on the client side, and we're going to remove that entry and save it. Now if we go back to our website and we go back one and we enter our lobby, we see that that name doesn't show up because we removed it. We just removed it. Okay, so that's housekeeping. Now on client side, when our web page loads, we want to ask the server if we can join the chat room. All right, so to do that, what we need to do is we need to start on server side. So let me get that ready here. Let's see. So Visual Studio Code in server side in main.js. What we're going to do is we're going to add some code here. So first of all, we need to decide what the name of the chat room that we're trying to join is. And so let's introduce a new variable called chat. Let's call it chat room with a capital R. And we'll set it equal to a string with single quotes, and we'll just call it capital L lobby. So that'll be the name of the room that we try and join. It's kind of arbitrary, but we need to pick something. Okay, so then we are, let's see, let's just indicate here in a comment, set up the socket.io connection to the server. This is already here, so we're not changing that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put here, we're going to say request to join the chat room. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use some jQuery functionality, and we're going to run a function after the web page is done loading. So we'll use the jQuery $sign indicator. We'll do a single open parenthesis, and then we'll do open and close parenthesis to indicate that we want to run a function when the web page is loaded. So we'll do equals, greater than, and then these curly brackets. And the function that we're going to, or what we want to have happen in there is we want to create a request that we're going to send to our server. So let's create that request, and we'll say let request equal nothing right now. So it's an object with nothing in it. Now in that object, we're going to say request.room is going to be equal to chat room, which is what we set up above. And we'll say request.username equals the username that we pulled off up above as well from our IRI. Then what we'll do is on the client, we'll just indicate what we're about to do. So we'll write a message to the developer tool console. We'll say single quote for asterisk client log message sending. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a backslash single quote so that that'll show up. Join room backslash single quote command and colon space single quote plus, and then we're going to send the contents of our request. To turn that into a string, we'll type JSON, capital JSON, dot stringify, parenthesis, request. Close paren, semicolon. That will indicate, that's just a message that goes out on our console that we can see what we're doing. And then following that, we'll actually send the request to the server. So to send the request to the server, we'll use the socket that we created up above. We will emit a message, and the message will be join_room, and what we will send will be the payload. This is when we actually send that join room message to the server. Add a semicolon at the end of that, save that. So that's all it takes to send a message, an explicit join room message to the server. Now the server isn't prepared to receive that message, so we need to add some code so that the server can receive it. And when we do this, it's a little bit tedious because we want to make sure that on the server side, the server wants to make sure that the information that has been sent to it from the client is good information. So we're going to have to check that out. All right, so now if our client from our browser sends this information, our server is going to receive it. And we'll open up our server code, and we will look at where we have our messages. So here's one event that happens. We can have one of our sockets disconnect, and so we already have some code for that. And what we'll do here is we'll add some new code afterwards. We'll actually start with those 3 lines, copy those, and we'll put it down here. And when we receive, let me scroll up a little bit. What we'll do here is we will indicate what we're going to do when we receive a join room command. First thing that we'll do when we receive that join room command is we'll just write out a message. We'll say server received a command, single quote, comma, and then we will pass it single quote backslash single quote, join room, backslash, single quote, comma, and then we'll send it the payload that we received. So json.stringify, and we will send it the payload that we received. Oh, I didn't indicate that there's a payload. There should be a payload here that we received with that command. And then it ends like that. All right, so that will just notify that we've received the command. Now let's put some comments up here so that we have some documentation about what we're doing with this command. So what we want to say is this is just text for developers and describing what we're about to do. So join room command handler, that's what we're writing right now. And what we're going to say is that what we expect from the client when they send us something is we expect them to send us an object, and in that object we expect one thing to be the room, and that's going to be the room to be joined, and we'll check this in a second, and the username, which is the name of the user joining the room. All right, that's the end of that comment. So that's what we expect, and then what we expect to send back is going to be a join room response. So this is going to be a message that the server sends back to the client, which we'll write in a moment, but we'll describe it first. And what we're going to describe is that it take one of two forms. It can be a success or it can be a failure. So let's say first of all that joining the room was a success. So we'll send back the string success, and we will indicate the room that was joined, and the username, the user that joined the room, and we'll send back membership, which is the number of users in the chat room. So that's what happens if it's successful. Actually, let's change that to count, but we're just going to have to remember that I changed it here. Let's see. Count the number of users in the chat room. Good. Or we can get back something that's not so successful. If something goes wrong, then we will send back a message that said fail, and we will send back a message and the reason for failure. And then that's the end of our comment. So that's how we expect things to go. Let's save that, and actually let's just run it because that should work okay. We won't do anything yet, but we should at least see the flow of information. So let's give that a shot. Let's come down here. Because we saved server.js, we need to hit Control-C to cancel our program running, and then we'll start running it again. And we will have our chat room, we'll load it up again, and we will have a user join. So the first thing that's going to happen when I hit enter lobby is this connection is going to connect to the server, and then it's going to try and join the chat room, and we should see that the server receives that command that someone tried to join. All right, a page connected to the server. Something didn't go right. So I had expected to see the server output that someone tried to join the room. I expected to see server log received a command there, and I didn't see it. So we should have seen some kind of error. I don't see an error here in the server, so there must be an error, therefore, in my client side. The way that I see my client side errors is I do inspect, and then I can pull down the inspect window. I've got it in a separate little window here. Let's size it up. And we can see that uncaught reference chat room is not defined. All right, so in main.js30, chat room has not been defined. Okay, so let's go see what I did wrong. Hopefully that was a typo. So in main.js, it says chat room is undefined. Oh, that's because I named it the wrong thing. Here I used chat capital R, and here I used chat underscore room. So let's adjust that. Let's make that chat capital R room. Save everything, and let's try and run it again and see if it works. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to restart my server, Control-C, restart it. I will refresh this with all the new code, empty the cache. I will attempt to join, enter the lobby, and didn't run again. So I see that a page connected to the server, that's good. We got the connection, but the join room command didn't run. So let's see what happened now. Go to my console. I see an uncaught error, payload is not defined, and this is in main.js 33. A lot of bugs. All right, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to look at main.js line 33. It says payload is not defined. Oh, that's because I didn't call it payload. I called it a request. So let's send it request, which is what I should have done in the beginning. Okay, so I used a variable name that wasn't defined. Good. Found that error pretty quickly. I just made a change in main.js, so I don't need to restart the server. I just need to reload my client. So empty cache and reload. Let's see what our client says here. DJP3, enter lobby. Great, now it worked. First of all, when I entered the lobby, the page connected to the server, and then the server received a command from my client. It was the join room command. The room that I tried to join was lobby, and the username that tried to join was DJP3. That's great. All right, so now let's fill out the error checking on server.js. We received that command. Now let's just make sure that the payload that we received from the user was in good shape. All right, so we're going to just do a bunch of error checking here. So first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that payload has data in it. So we'll say if type of payload double equals single quote undefined. So if the payload is undefined, or payload triple equals null, then we have a problem because someone tried to send us a join room command and they didn't provide any data for us. So what we'll do is we'll create a response object and we will say response.result, just like we indicated above, is going to be fail. Got to spell it right. And we'll say the message for why it failed is client did not send a payload. All right. And then what we'll do is we'll send that response back. So we'll say socket.emit. We're going to send back this command, the join room response, and the data that we're going to send it is the response data. And then we will log that information as well, and we'll say join room command failed, and we'll pass it JSON.stringify the response as well. So we'll log that to our log message. And then we'll stop execution. If it was an error, we're just not going to continue any further. All right, but if our payload was okay, then we can get down here and we can check the data in the payload. So let's set that up. Let's try and get the room from our payload. And let's try and get the username from our payload. And now we need to do a similar check that we did up here, but instead of checking the payload, we're going to check the room and the username. So in this first one, we're going to say if the type of room is undefined or room equals null, then we'll say fail. Client did not send a valid room to join. We'll send back that response. We'll indicate that the command failed. Now in the second one, instead of the payload, we'll check the username here, and we'll check the username here, and the response has failed, and the client did not send a valid username to join the chat room. And that failed, and we'll send back the response. All right, so let's just indicate what it is that we're doing here. Little message, check that the data coming from the client is good. All right. Now we've gotten down here and we see that the data is good. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually handle the command. And so to have someone join that chat room, we're going to use socket.join and then use the room that the client asked to join. So that will join them to the room on the server side. And now what we want to do is we want to make sure the socket was put, or rather that the client was put in the room. This is where we're going to send back our response to everyone that's in the room. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to check. We're going to see all of the clients that are in the room. We'll do io.in and then room. That's what we're going to get back, all of the sockets that were in that room. When they come back, we're going to run a function. And what we're going to do with the results is we're going to check to see if all the sockets are in there. So first let's log what happened. So we'll say server log and say single quotes or double quotes are the same in JavaScript. So we can say there are sockets.length, oh, but you got to be consistent. There's single socket.length plus clients in the room. So that's just a notification of what we experienced here. So now, if for some reason it didn't go okay, we'll say the socket didn't join the room. And the way we're going to know that the socket didn't join the room is an if statement. We'll say if the type of sockets equals double equals undefined. So this is going to be a pattern that we're going to see. Or sockets equals triple equals null. And then we're going to add one more condition to this. Or not sockets.includes socket. So that means that for some reason, the list of sockets that are in the room does not include the one that we just asked to join the room. And if that's the case, then we need to have a fail message. So let me get the information up here, copy those down here, and we'll set up our response. We have a failure, and this is an internal failure, so we'll just say server internal error joining chat room. It's nothing that the client did wrong, just something went wrong with our software. And then we will send a join room response indicating that it failed, and we will log that. And then we don't need to return because what we're going to do is we're going to put an else statement on here. And this else statement is going to be if the socket did join the room. And in this case, with an else, we will have a success message. So let's come up here and let's see. Oh, we don't have a success message yet. So let's grab what we have here. And the result is success. And we're going to set up those different things that we said we were going to say. So the room that was joined is the room. And the username that joined is the username. And the count of how many people are in there is going to be equal to sockets.length. All right, and now we just need to send that message out. And so we will tell everyone that a new user has joined the chat room. In this case, we only want to send it to people that are in the room. So we will say io.of. So this is a namespace if anyone wants to figure that out later. So the global namespace, everyone that is, we're going to send it to everyone that is in the room we're interested in. We're going to send out the message, and the message is join room response. And we're going to send the response out. And then we will log it, and we'll say server.log join room command join room succeeded. And we will put the information there. All right, let's clean up everything we've got here. So we'll add a semicolon at the end of that. I'm going to use the check to see we're matching everything here. Got to make sure you have your curly brackets and your parentheses all matched up. And if that works, then our server will send back a response if there's a successful joining by the client. Our client will receive that join room response message back in response from the server, but doesn't do anything to handle it yet. But let's see if our server.js code works cleanly. So let's shift over to our terminal. Let's hit Control C. We'll run our server with the new code. Server's running. Let's go back to our entrance page. So my connection disconnected. I'm going to just empty cache and reload. I'm going to join here, enter the lobby, and I did get some sort of problem here. I misspelled response, and I see that's on line 132. So let's go to server.js, line 132. I misspelled response, spell it right, save it, run that command again. Go back, empty cache, hard reload, type in my name, hit enter lobby. All right, so what happened here? We see that our page connected to the server. That's when I moved to lobby. That's good. And then my client sent the join room command. The server received it. There's my name. The server indicated that there's one client in the room lobby. That's the one that just joined me. The join room succeeded, and then it sent back this response that says result success, lobby, username, DJP3 count 1. That's all good. My client doesn't do anything with that response. So the last thing now that we want to do is we want to adjust that. So let's just see what we did here. When the web page loads, ask the server to join the chat room. Did that. Server side, when the client requests to join a room, we checked to make sure their data was good. We did that. We put them in the chat room, and then we told everyone that a new person is in the chat room. Now we're going to go back to the client side, and we're going to handle that join room response message to indicate, what just happened, so that the person who's using our website can make sense of it all. All right, so that message comes into lobby. So we start with lobby. This is the HTML that is the shell for what we're looking at. Main.js is the code that does the handling. Right now, we just have one handler, which is this socket.log message. So if we get a log message, our client can handle that. Just puts it out on the dev tool. So what we need to do now is we need to add something that handles a join room response. So if we receive a join room response, what do we want to do with our document object model in order to deal with this? Well, let's write a function that's going to do something with the data. All right, curly brackets there. Let's check to make sure we got good data. So if type of payload double equals undefined, or payload triple equals null, then we've got a problem. In which case, what are we going to do if we have a problem? We'll just, oh, I guess we have one more situation that's a problem. Okay, well, if that's a problem, then we'll just say alert. This will do a pop-up for the user. Server did not, and actually, we don't want the user to see that. We'll just log that. We'll just say console.log server did not send a payload. And we'll return at that point. All right. But if we get past that if statement, and then we check to see whether or not the payload indicated there was success. So if payload.result triple equals fail, so if it did not work, then this time what we're going to do is we're going to console.log, and what we'll log is the payload.message, which is the error that occurred, and then we'll return. If we something isn't color coded right, so what's going on here? Console log. I don't have good color coding, so I know there's a problem. I don't have the wrong number of parentheses here. There we go. My color coding is fixed again. So now if we get down here, we know that we got a good join room response, and this is kind of where we really want to do the work. So we'll do a little jQuery here, and let's build a string. Let's say let I don't know, let's just call it new string. This is what we're going to add into our document object model. And what we'll put in there is we will put in a new paragraph tag into our HTML, and we will say, we'll give it a class just in case we want to style it later, / single quote join room response. And so if we want to color that with CSS, we can use the join room response class, / single quote, greater than, that's the end of our opening p tag. And what we'll say is we will say, single quote, we will add the username plus single quote space joined the space single quote plus payload.room. So we'll indicate whatever the name was of who joined the room and which room they joined, and then we'll add to that a single quote as well. And we will say, put a period there so it looks like a sentence. And then we'll put a parenthesis and we'll say, there are space single quote plus payload dot count plus single quote users in this room. Put a parenthesis there so it looks right. And then we'll close our p tag for our HTML. Single quote, semicolon. All right, so our new string, that looks okay. All right, now we want to take that string and we want to put it in our document object model. Where? In our messages block. So we'll use jQuery and we will select the element in our document object model, which is called messages, and we're going to prepend it, the new string at that location. Save that up, and I think it's okay. So now what this does is on the client side, when we get back that response, we'll do something with it. So now we should have a pretty good demo. Let's see if we can get this up and running. All right, let's kill our server and restart our server. And then let's go back with one web page, and let's go ahead and bring up another one so that we've got two. Let's refresh that one. And in this web browser, we'll say Don, and Don will enter the lobby. We'll see there's one client in the room, lobby, join room success. I didn't enter anything, nothing showed up here on that join room success, so I must have a bug here. So let me inspect. See what I got? Join room succeeded. For some reason I don't see that message coming back. So I don't see that join room response coming back here. So let me just go check in my server code to make sure I was sending join room response back. So go back to server.js. Here's where I'm sending this message. Here's the I misspelled response. So I didn't spell it right, and so the string didn't match. So let me save the server. Let me go back to main.js and see where, join room response is spelled right there. So I didn't actually send a message. The server sent a message that was misspelled. The client was waiting for the correctly spelled message. They never met. All right, so let's go back here. Let's cancel our server. Let's restart it. Let's go back one here. And let's go to our other client. All right, so let's empty the cache and reload. And let's have Don join, enter lobby. Boom. All right, great. And now we received it. Don joined the lobby. There's one user in this room. Now let's come over here and say Patterson, enter the lobby. And Patterson joined the lobby. And there are two users in the room. And you can see over on the left, the original client also got updated that Patterson joined the lobby. New messages arriving at the top. And now there are two users in the room. And if all goes well, I should get a disconnect here. And on disconnect, I don't send out a new update. So there's no message coming on disconnect, but there should only be two users in the room again. So if I go back and rejoin, you can see that I rejoined the lobby and there's still only two users in the room. So one user did in fact disconnect. It just wasn't sent as a message. All right, so that wraps it up. That's setting up the lobby as something that people can join and provide some communication, and completes the execution of having a message, the join room message, going to the server sending the join room response back, and then the client rendering a change, indicating what's been sent along the way. That was you saw a little bit of debugging in that. You saw me make a couple typos. You saw a little bit of how I went about trying to fix that. So you'll probably encounter some of that as well. So be patient. It's a skill to learn how to debug, just as it is a skill learning how to code. Thanks for your attention.